a triangle using its sides and its angles. So talking about angles first, if you have 3 acute angles, does anybody know maybe what kind of triangle this would be if we're talking about the angles specifically? It's acute. Common sense. I like that. Okay. What about one obtuse angle? That's obtuse. Okay, okay. What about right triangle or right? But yeah, I accidentally just said it. Okay, this one you're not going to get because this is a new vocabulary word. If you have 3 congruent angles, what is it? It is not an equilateral. It is not congruent. It is equal angular. Because in math class, we just start making up words, apparently. So equilateral is for when 3 sides are congruent. Technically, equiangular is more specifically when you have 3 equal angles, which is like the same thing. So like whatever. Because if you have an equilateral triangle, it's automatically going to be angular. If it's equiangular, then it's automatically equilateral. Okay. So we're going to look at a picture of a bunch of triangles and we are going to figure out what kind of triangle it is. We're going to classify it. So if you look at triangle CDE, right triangle. So we're looking at this big picture, but you're looking at individual triangles within this triangle. So BC, that's going to be obtuse. It doesn't matter what the angle is. You got to look. This is automatically going to be obtuse because it's bigger than 90. So anything bigger than a right angle is going to be obtuse. Anything smaller than a right angle is going to be acute. So this is obtuse. Equiangular. And then try the last 2. Take a second. Try by yourself. Okay, so what is BDE? Obtuse. And then CFE is acute. It's not right because this right is for both of those angles combined. So it's making this right angle right here. So the square is technically right angle. So if it's less than that, because it's talking about this triangle right here, that's an acute triangle. Ugh, my drawings are really bad. Okay, so if it wants angles, classification by angles, those are your options. You have acute, obtuse, right, and equiangular because like equal angles. Okay, now we have 3 sides, which you should have learned in elementary school. So if you have 3 congruent sides, what type of triangle would that be? Equilateral. Because you have these little tick marks. So they're saying if that's 5, this is 5, and that's 5. What about 2 congruent sides? Isosceles. I always spell this word wrong. You should have learned this. This would have been like elementary school is probably the last time you talked about an isosceles triangle. You should recognize the word, hopefully. Isosceles means 2 congruent sides. So once again, they could have tick marks or they could just put the numbers. If I know this is 10, then this is automatically 10 because it's isosceles. No congruent sides. I specifically remember when I was a kid, I could never remember this one. Does anybody remember this one?
I remember Scalene.
Yes. Scalene.
Yes,
so this one has no tick marks. None of the sides are the same length. So this would be like 5, 7, and 10 as your side lengths. Okay. Okay. So what we're going to do now, we're going to use this picture and we're just going to classify it by the sides. Take a second and see if you can figure this out. You're either using equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. There's no angles involved. So take a second, look at your picture, try to figure out your 3. Ronnie, can you try to do math?
You can try the number.
That's not a bad thing. What are you talking about? Smart people make money when they're old. People think right now smart people are nerds and they're like, oh, look at that nerd. They're genius. And then when they're making bank, when they're older, they're gonna be like, wow. What? I mean, that's a possibility. Math? What? Okay. For JKM, that's the whole thing. What kind of triangle is that? We're not using angles. It is scalene. Okay. KLN, isosceles. JKN, equilateral. Okay, so if it's classification by angles, it's one of the 4 top ones. Okay, one of these 4. If it's classification by sides, it's one of these 3. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at all 6 of these triangles, and each one needs 2 classifications. So you need to classify it by angles and sides. I don't care which one is first. It doesn't really matter as long as you have both. So for number 9, what 2 words could I use to classify this triangle? Isosceles and what else? Oh, and right, yeah. So take a minute, try to figure out the other 5. Talk to the people at your table. Try the other 5.
Like very, very good today, and now I'm actually I get absolutely not. All day. Every day. Last week after that, after you gave me that bad note on Monday, I was not on my phone for the rest
For
of the day.
one day?
I said for the
I'm
rest
sorry. Okay, so let's do it again.
Yeah, man, let's do it again.
What's your grade in my class? You got like a B?
Wait, it's 11. 11%, it's good.
Do you have a B? I think it's a B.
Oh, don't put it.
Well, pull it up on your phone. Where's your phone? I know it's in your lap.
Okay, but I'm not using that.
Well, pull it up and focus real quick.
I wonder why. Anyways. No, it's not B. It's a B. My bad.
It's a B?
I think 11 is equal.
Bro, the worst grade I have in school is average.
Bro, my worst grade right now is
Mine is finance.
Like, you'd be
Yours
surprised.
is finance?
mine is art.
I got
Your worst grade is art? You're good at art.
No, I turned my stuff in, and like he has people on focus, so keep the house, keep deleting.
I want to be like an art teacher.
And
Like,
I showed him my work.
Say we're going to draw some clouds.
I showed him. You said you're good. Take a picture of the exam.
Yeah. You can take it on the 19th. Okay. Why not? Ooh, what concert? Are you going? Oh, okay. Are you going on the 17th? That makes sense. Yeah, you could just take it the next day. Okay, let's talk about number 10. What 2 things could you say about number 10? It's scalene because it does not have any tick marks, and it does not say that the 2 sides are congruent. Although it looks like it, one of those could be like 10 feet and one of them could be 9.9 feet. Okay, so do not make assumptions. Okay, 11, what 2 things are these? Either like the equilateral, equal angular ones, we'll just put EQ. Because automatically if it's one, then it's the other. What about 12? It's acute. No congruent sides, which is scalene. That's okay. Okay, 13, shh, be quiet. right, and scalene. And then last but not least, no, obtuse, isosceles. Even though this one doesn't have tick marks, you could add the ticks because if this one is 5, this one is automatically 5. So you could add in your own tick marks. Okay. So as we're going to be doing triangles for like 2 months, 3 months. Anytime you see like an equivalent side, you could add a tick mark, add a tick mark. If you know one side is 5, put it on the picture. The other side is 5. Because it tells you it's 5. It says 5 feet. So it's 5. Okay. So on this picture over here, we're going to do that same exact thing. Shh. The picture, adding things to your picture will help you. So if, be quiet. If this is 8 and it has a tick mark, okay, I'm going to put 8 where the other tick mark is also at. So I'm going to put an 8 over here. Just because visually it's going to help you figure out the rest of these. Because this has a tick mark and it's 8, this has a tick mark and it's 8, I can also add a tick mark over here. I could technically add a tick mark somewhere else. Wherever there's an 8, it can get a little tick mark. Visually, it just will help you in the long run to see what's actually congruent. There's also 2 other sides that are congruent. Does anybody know what the number is that's congruent? 16. Now, 8 and 16 are not congruent to each other. So we're going to double tick it. Okay. Take a second. And what you're going to do is the same exact thing you just did. It gives you specific triangles. The first one, we'll do the first one together. It says UQR. Isosceles. And what else? Obtuse. So you're going to put both. That's fine. Yeah, shorten it if you want. So take a second, try the rest of these. The hardest one that you need to be careful with, I'm going to tell you, is number 19. This one's the tricky one, number 19. The rest of them are not bad. So take a minute, take a couple minutes, talk to the people at your table, see if you guys can get the same answers. You're labeling it with both words. You need one from each section. No, because one has 1 tick mark, one has 2 tick marks. So those are not the same. No. If it's equilateral, then it's automatically equal angular. If it's equal angular, it's automatically equal lateral.
Okay, I looked
Which
at
one?
MST.
No.
Wait.
So what's the equal one?
It's not scaling.
Yeah, an equal out.
Yes.
That's just it. It's just that. Oh.
Just for the EQ.
And equal angular, because equal and equal go together.
Oh, okay. I like looking
Yeah,
at
the one you were talking about, I think it's scaling. And.
No, I had a good battery.
That's not
Well, not everybody, but people don't know that.
a cube.
A cue for the 18.
Yeah. Nope.
It's not scaling.
Nope.
Oh my God, you know that one
Okay. Let's start talking about these. Are we done with them or do we need another minute? keep going. Okay. So 16, if you're talking about RST, what kind of triangle is that? Equilateral and equal angular. Okay. If it's equal one way, then it's equal the other way. Okay. So equilateral and equal angular go together. So I'm just going to put EQ because I don't want to write that out. Okay. 17 is SRQ. Right and scalene. 18 is PRT. Obtuse and isosceles. Because this is 8 and then this is going to be 8. Because if this is 60, shh, be quiet.
See how I'm not even talking, I'm being good.
If this is 60, shh, be quiet.
Oh, my
Yeah. Can you stop? Be quiet. If this is 60 and these are both 8, anytime you have a 60 triangle and there's congruent sides, this is automatically going to be 60. This is automatically going to be 60 because the triangle has to add to make 180. So it's going to have 60, 60, 60, and then all the sides are going to be the same, 8, 8, and 8. So this total length is going to be 16 as well. So it's isosceles and it's obtuse because this is your big angle. TQU is what? Good, equilateral and equal angular. And then PQT, right and scalene. Okay, so the next part is where the math comes in. So we're talking about side lengths, okay? We need to determine what kind of triangle it's going to be given the coordinate points. So realistically, we could make a graph and we could plot the points. And if it was a nice picture, you could easily tell it's a right angle because it should make 2 straight lines, like perpendicular lines. But the problem is whenever it looks like it's equilateral, you need to be sure it's equilateral. This will 100% be on your EOC. It's a little time consuming, but it's not hard. You need to make sure it's equilateral versus being scalene, because if it's off by 0.2, then it's wrong. It's technically scalene or whatever it is. Okay. So what we're going to use, the reason why I moved this poster to the front of the board is because we did this during chapter 1, way back when. Okay. Back in August, we did the distance formula. What we're going to do is instead of plotting out the points and trying to eyeball it, we're going to make sure it's the same or different using the distance formula. So we're going to calculate the length between each point. If they're all the same, what kind of triangle would that be? Equilateral. If 2 are the same, isosceles. And then if they're all different, that's going to be the scalene one. Okay. So it's going to be a little time consuming. It's going to be a little annoying. We're not going to do 22, so you can cross out 22. If you need space for 21, you can use this box because we're not going to do 22. So 21, what we're going to do is we're going to find the distance between J and K to start. So JK, well, actually not JK, but like JK, we're going to do it. So we're using -7, -7. And -9, 1. It does not matter which one is coordinate point 1 and which one is coordinate point 2, because if you're going from one point to another point or the point to the other point, it's still a length, it's still a distance, so you're still going to get a positive number no matter what. Shh. So I'm going to call this one, I'll call X2, Y2. And then this is the formula we learned a long time ago. It is on your reference sheet. You do not need to remember it. What's up? Yes, it is a square root thing. It's technically like called a radical, which is the square root thing. So what is X2? -9. I'm subtracting X1, which is -7. Now, if I'm subtracting -7, what is it actually doing? Adding. So it's not adding -7, it just becomes a plus sign. So you're doing -9, you're subtracting -7. So that's what turns it into the plus sign because you're subtracting a negative. I'm going to make it into a plus sign. I'm just going to use a different color. So that way you can see it's like it changed to a plus sign. Okay. Squared plus in parentheses. I'm doing the same thing. Y2 minus Y1. So what is Y2? No. No. 1. And I'm minusing what? -7. So if I'm minusing a negative, once again, what's it going to turn into? Add. So it's going to turn into a +7. It only turns to a plus sign when you're subtracting a negative. Now you can do this all in the calculator. You don't even have to really write it out. In a calculator, you're doing -9. I'm adding 7. You get -2. And now you're squaring it. So you get 4. So x squared is the square button. It makes it bigger. If you want to square root it, you press shift and then that same button because squaring and square rooting do the opposite of each other. You don't square root it. You don't press shift. Okay. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm doing 1 plus 7, which is 8. And then I'm squaring it, which makes 64. If you add them, you get 68. Now you could take 68 and square root it. Let's round to the nearest decimal, I guess. So we'll say 8.2. Boop. So it's around 8.2. No, because it's technically negative. It's, hold on, no. Yeah, so negative times a negative is a positive. This, you're doing 68. And then you're pressing shift and then the x squared button because it's undoing the square, which makes it square root. Yeah. Okay, so that's JK. So now we're going to do 2 other points. Let's do KL. So K and L, I have -9, 1. -1, -1. And I know this is time consuming, but the distance formula will be on your EOC. And the good thing for you guys is technically this is the last state test for math that you have to take as long as you pass it. If you don't pass it, they're just gonna make you retake a bunch of random tests until you pass something. But if you pass the geometry EOC, then like you're donezo, like you're good until you take the SAT for like college purposes. So you should definitely try your best. So although it's like time consuming, it's not hard. Okay, so and you don't even have to remember the formula, which is great. So you're doing x2 minus x1. So what is x2? -1. And I'm minusing what? -9. So plus 9. Then I'm adding. Y2 is -1. And I'm minusing what? 1. That does not turn into a plus sign because the 1 was positive. So it's still just a minus sign. So now I'm going to use the calculator just to do the math because I don't want to think too hard. Don't hurt your brains if you don't need to. Can you not? -1 plus 9 is 8. Well, I'm trying to film a video. So 8 squared is 64. And then I have -1 minus 1. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. And then I square it, I get +4 because it's anytime it's a negative, it doesn't matter. It's going to come down to be a positive because the negative times the negative is positive. Positive times positive is positive. So everything's going to be positive no matter what. So far I got the square root of 68 and I got the square root of 68, which is good because that means either it's going to be isosceles or it's going to be equilateral. It is not scalene because I have 2 matching sides already. So I get 8.2 again. Okay. We're going to do the last side. I'm going to do it down here because I kind of ran out of space. So I'm going to use this side. What 2 letters do I have to? J and L. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But you're only going to have 1 problem to do. So it's not hard. No, not on the EOC for homework. But on the EOC, they'll probably give you like 1 or 2 problems with distance formula, whether it's this kind of problem or something else. Yeah. So last one, and then we'll see if it's equilateral or if it's isosceles. So distance formula your life away. See if you can figure it out. Try to set up your equation. What'd you get? Mm-hmm. So if you want to see if you plugged it in correctly, that's what you should.
Like I put 7 in front.
And then do you have +1? That's wrong. Because -1 plus 7 is different from 7 minus 1.
Awesome.
Yes. Okay. So these ones both turn into plus signs, okay, because you're minusing -7 for both of them. So you should get 36 and 36, which is 72, which is not the same as 68. So this one's a little bit longer. So what kind of triangle is number 21? Isosceles. Because you have two sides that are the same and you have one side that is different. The distance formula, like I said, you do not need to remember. The distance formula will be on your reference sheet. It's time consuming. It's a little annoying. It's not terrible. Not the worst thing ever, but what's up? Yeah, for today. Normally I use 5th period.